Guests, please take your seats. The program is about to begin. Please welcome to the stage Program Director of the Nobel Peace Prize Forum, Joe Underhill.
Good afternoon, and welcome to this closing plenary session, Action in the Face of Paradox. As we have heard today from our speakers, the process of peacemaking is complex indeed. This year, we built programming around the parallel motifs of the paradox of peace and the paradox of water. Things as fundamental and complex as water or peace necessarily contain qualities that appear contradictory or opposite. Water is a source of both peace and conflict, as we heard in many of our breakout sessions earlier today, as well as of life and death, connection and separation, the sacred and the profane. At a time when the human impulse to simplify and isolate from these complexities of the world is so apparent, these voices call us to recognize and live into what it means to exist on a planet soaked in water, experiencing a thorough mix of conflict and peace, and as such, a world saturated with paradox. We have a group of students here today who have been traveling this fall down the Mississippi River as part of the river semester. I think that might be them. You can, besides being an exuberant bunch, you can usually pick them out as the ones with the really sunny faces and the muddy shoes. They've been shuttled back up here this week to participate in the forum, and then we'll be returning back to the river with some of the speakers and participants as well to travel for a few days down this amazing waterway. And they are learning, as we all will on that trip, that the river is both a challenging and a patient teacher. Rivers flow endlessly, tirelessly, efficiently, the perfectly complex combination of water, topography, and gravity. The river also teaches us that the peace we seek, the peace that flows like a mighty river, is to be found not in the stark divide between black and white, but in the countless shades of brown and tan and gray. Peace and justice are to be found neither on dry land nor in the deep blue sea, but in the messiness of mud and wetlands, in the permeability of letting in some things and keeping out others. The river teaches us that to be at peace is to be in the space between selfishness and selflessness, to be in the water but afloat, to be carried by the current but also steering the boat with great care and attentiveness. And there are in this process no quick or easy fixes. In the words of the poet Frank Porter in his Villanelle for Our Times, we have loved the easy and the smart, but now with keener hand and brain, we rise to play a greater part. The lesser loyalties depart, and neither race nor creed remain. From bitter searching of the heart, not steering by the venal chart that tricked the mass for private gain, we rise to play a greater part, reshaping narrow law and art, whose symbols are the millions slain. From bitter searching of the heart, we rise to play a greater part. And part of what is so powerful about prizes like this Nobel Peace Prize, which we celebrate today with the laureates that we have with us, is that it recognizes work not of the athlete or the bombastic politician or the athlete, or the athlete, right? But it recognizes those who have risen and searched their hearts and played the role that they were able to on the public stage. And here we recognize that ability and obligation of each of us to take action, even in the face of the tangled paradoxes of peace. Someone who has played a major role in our own community right here, who has risen to play a greater part, is our own state senator, Patricia Torres Ray. Senator Torres made history in 2006 by becoming the first Latina elected to the Minnesota Senate. She's now serving her 4th term representing Minnesota District 63. Patricia was born in Colombia, studied law at the University of Nariño, and moved to Minnesota in 1987. Since her election in 2006, Patricia has authored over 250 pieces of legislation and worked tirelessly building relationships in the community with her colleagues, with her partners locally, nationally, and globally to create opportunities for Minnesota families, to close racial and socioeconomic disparities, and to protect and advance the rights of all underserved and underrepresented communities. It's my great pleasure and honor to welcome to the podium now Senator Patricia Torres Ray.
Good afternoon. Buenas tardes. Huh? That is good. It really is my pleasure to be here. It really is an honor. as a senator and as a native of Colombia, to be with you this afternoon, really celebrating the efforts of our state and celebrating the efforts of Colombia. It truly is an honor. I am delighted to be here with Colombians who have made Minnesota home, like me, for 31 years, with distinguished visitors from Colombia, and with our allies and friends in Augsburg. It really is a pleasure. I was delighted to accept the challenge to speak about the role of Minnesota in supporting the peace process in Colombia and how we could strengthen our ties between Colombia and Minnesota in 5 minutes. But the Nobel Peace Prize Forum in Minnesota seeks to inspire peacemaking efforts by lifting up the work of recent Nobel Peace Prize laureates. And 2018 is a particularly important year because it makes its 30th anniversary. And if you think about this, we are celebrating the work of Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos. And Colombia has been in conflict actually for 60 years, which is double the time of the work of the forum. And the theme for this year is the paradox of peace. And the invitation to us as Minnesotans is to think about how we, here in this cold land, can support the process of peace, and what is that we as Minnesotans can do to strengthen our ties with these communities and to address the challenges that the country is facing right now. So in reflecting about this, I was thinking about a chant that we use in political organizing these days, and I hope you have heard this chant. The chant goes like, no justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. Go with me. No justice, no peace. So we use this chant commonly in the streets to protest the killing of Black men by police officers. And if you understand this chant as an if, then, it's a clear statement. The chant means that as long as injustice prevails, acting peacefully is a moral impossibility. If salario mínimo, which is the minimum salary, is 781,000 pesos, which is $258 a month, and if almost 40% of that goes to pay for the rent of a one-room apartment, then if more than 5.9 million Colombians have been violently displaced as a result of conflict, and nearly 35% of families in Colombia lacked adequate housing, then, and if the unemployment rate in Colombia increased from 9.70% in July, from 9.10% from June 2018, then. So the question is clear. The chant is there. No justice, no peace. If Colombia has entered into 13 trade agreements and is currently negotiating 8 more, the country is facing challenges like corruption, terrorism, and poor infrastructure. But these trade agreements will benefit large corporations both in the US and Colombia. If the difficult geography and poor transportation are not helping the people who produce these products and are not helping the government who want to help the farmers. Only if. So as long as these injustices prevail, acting peacefully may be or may not be a moral impossibility. So then the question for us here in Minnesota, being so far away from Colombia, is what do we do about it? What is our responsibility? Do we know anybody who's working in Colombia? Are we aware of the companies that do this work in Colombia? I am going to tell you about a few companies that you probably know. Cargill, for example. Cargill is an American privately held company. It's a global corporation that is based in Minnesota. It is the largest privately held corporation in the United States in terms of private revenue. Some of Cargill's major businesses are trading, purchasing, and distributing grain and other agricultural commodities. Cargill has been working in Colombia since 1966. Remember how long Colombia has been in conflict? 1960. So Cargill knows very well about our conflict. Cargill has been our partner all of this time. But they have navigated the waters of conflict in Colombia. So they know the workers, they know the production, they know how to partner in moments of conflict with a country like Colombia. Cargill declared revenues of $136.7 billion last year, and they employed over 155,000 employees. And they are responsible for 25% of all United States grain exports. And did you know that a lot of this grain comes from Colombia? I hope you remember this next time you go to the grocery store. You think about the partnership that we have between Colombia and Minnesota. You think about the people and the farmers who are working in the farm today, who are making less than $1 a day. They work for you. They work to make this economy better every day. And they work for Cargill, and they work for the state of Minnesota. I am going to give you a statistic that you probably don't know, and this is for Colombians who are here today. Sometimes these companies purchase companies, and you don't even know the names of these companies. So Cargill purchased recently El Bucanero. El Bucanero is one of the largest chicken companies in the world. They paid an undisclosed sum of money. The company is a consumer brand selling packaged chicken and processed meats in retail stores throughout Colombia and throughout South America. Cargill owns that company now. They have invested $100 million in modernizing the production of chickens in these companies. Jorge Ivan Duque is the CEO of this company, and you might recognize those names. They employ over 10,000 people and will bring 35,000 workers across Latin America to work in processing chickens. General Mills, for those who are visiting from Colombia, I hope you get to visit these companies. We're very proud of these companies. General Mills arrived to Colombia in 2006. And General Mills was the third largest food consumer product company in the United States. The company has been working with many local companies in Colombia producing cereals. And most of the cereal that was produced in Colombia no longer is. We import most of the cereal that we consume in Colombia. Some of the cereal that you eat here is made in Colombia. Jorge Uribe is now the CEO of this company in Colombia, and you may recognize the name. Medtronic. We are so proud of Medtronic, producing medical devices that save lives every day, based in Fridley, Minnesota, among one of the world's largest medical equipment development companies, has been working in Colombia since 2006. And I can go on. 3M, many other companies that are now working in Colombia, making products, buying products, trading products. These companies are Minnesota-based. We have a true connection with Minnesota as Colombians. But one thing that we need to think about as Minnesotans, because the invitation of the forum today is to think about how do we strengthen our ties and how do we understand how we depend on each other to improve our economies and the lives of people and Minnesotans. Perhaps the first step that we need to take is to realize that we have three true connections between the two countries. That we are connected with workers, we are connected with industries, we are connected to these companies, and that these connections are vital to the future of our economies. But then I want you to think about the fact that these connections are also vital for the future of peace. And that these workers that are making it possible for Cargill and 3M, if these companies are not successful, if these products are not successful, if these workers are not successful, then what do we think about the future of peace in Colombia? I believe that our obligation today and our connection and our duty is to think about the people who make this possible, to think about the farmers, to think about the people who produce this technology every day. It is when the workers and the farmers can afford these commodities, when the workers and the farmers can really afford this technology, when the workers and the farmers can really afford access to health care, then we can think about peace. That is our connection. That is my invitation today. As a Colombian and as a senator, I feel that my message and my work is about connecting to the workers and the farmers and bringing you these stories and making absolutely sure that our pride in these communities, that the success of these companies, that the stories of these companies are truly connected to the life stories of the people that have made them possible. I invite you to do that. And I invite you to think about every product that you consume every day, that every time you pick up a product in the grocery store, every time you are offered a product by your doctor, I want to invite you to think about peace. I want you to think about Colombia. And I want you to question whether or not there is justice in that production. Thank you very much.
Please welcome to the stage Managing Director of the Nobel Peace Prize Forum, Bettina Hermansen.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much to Senator Torres-Ray for her remarks and how important it is for us to actually think about all the goods that we are using every day in Minnesota. We know that President Santos has done an amazing job, but there's more to be done. It is my pleasure now to welcome to the stage a courageous and talented artist. Armanta is a Somali musician whose activism, work, and creativity led him to become the ambassador to the United Nations High Commissioner of Refugees. While leading one of the only touring bands in the world that plays live Somali music, his work includes Dangerous Crossing, a campaign that focuses on irregular youth migration in the Horn of Africa, for which his song, Tarib, was reproduced and performed in collaboration with leading artists from the same region. As a singer and a songwriter, Manta has embraced an eclectic mix of styles, including influences from rock and reggae, jostling with traditional Arabic and Somali music. Despite graduating with a science degree, Manta pursued music. He began the Horn to Groove recording project, which generated his 2009 debut album, Hido and Dakan. The album merged traditional Somali music with Western influences like house and reggae into a fusion described as Afro-hop. In 2010, the Paris-based radio station, Star Africa, recognized Manta's achievement in creating this new sound when it named him a Somali culture shaper in London. He released the 2014 EP, Somali Songs from the Diaspora, to connect with Somalis around the world. Manta hopes to take his music to the wider community with an album in the works to be released this fall. He is currently the 2019 Artist in Residence at the Cedar Cultural Center and will be performing at the Cedar tomorrow evening starting at 8 p.m. He will shortly enter the stage with two other musicians, Nadia on oud and Harbi on percussion. And before they enter stage, we're going to see a short video that contextualizes the work that they do. Thank you.
Thank you, Minnesota, Augsburg. It's really, I'm happy to be here with you. And we're going to do that particular song, Tahrib, for you today in a traditional Somali setting. So I have joining me today Najah, who's going to play percussion, and also Harbi, who's going to play the oud. My band, like the lady who introduced us told you, are actually going to play the cedar tomorrow evening. So if you're free, come and join us and enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you. Thank you. Tahrib means irregular migration, and after this song was chosen by the UN, I did a campaign with the UN called Dangerous Crossings. So you'll be glad to know that you'll be able to watch this song with English subtitles, so you can understand better the message and the poetic feel of the Somali music. Once again, thank you, and we hope to see some of you tomorrow evening. And I'd like to thank Augsburg College, the Cedar Cultural Center. I'm here because of a part of a program called Midnimo. Midnimo means unity. And yeah, so this is Somalia and Minnesota, and that's what unity stands for. Thank you.
Thank you so much to these amazing artists, Armanta, Nadia, and Harbi, for your dedication to the plight of displaced people around the world. We look forward to his performance tomorrow. I think we were just going to say it one more time. He's playing tomorrow at the Cedar Culture Center at 8. And it's perfect timing. You'll end here at 5. You go eat dinner, and then you go to the Cedar Culture Center, which is just down the street. It is my honor now to welcome to the stage the director of the Matsunaga Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution at the University of Hawaii, Manoa, Dr. Maya Sutura-Ang. Previously, Sutura-Ang worked as a multicultural education and social studies methods professor at the University of Hawaii College of Education and taught in both the private and the public sector in high schools in New York City. She also worked at the West Center promoting educational exchanges between Asia and the United States. Sutura-Ang has published a number of books contributions, as well as a picture book entitled Ladder to the Moon, who I know that some of you bought today, and is currently under contract to write a young adult novel entitled Yellowwood. Sutura-Ang sits on many voluntary boards, including the Obama Foundation, founded by her brother Barack Obama, and is the co-founder of the nonprofit Seeds of Peace, which creates peace-building action plan workshops for educators, families, and community leaders. Today, she will talk about the importance of empowering and engaging young people in opportunities for peace building. Please help me welcome Maya Sutura-Ang.
Thank you. Aloha mai kako. Right on. Anu, I know you must be there. I can't see you because of the lights, but I know you're beautiful. We have some Hawaii folks represented in the audience. I'm so thrilled to be here. I'm so honored to be here. I want to thank Augsburg. I want to thank the Nobel Peace Prize Forum. I've learned an incredible amount in the last 2 days, and there's so much more I want and hope to learn with you. I want to start off the way I start off a lot of classes. I want you to turn to someone you don't know, and please tell them, what is your definition of peace or peace building? 2 minutes, go.
It's difficult, but a lot of it starts to me with family. We have peaceful family, it kind of overflows, and we'll see just kind of the joys that we have, the excitement, that kind of, in some ways, gusto that we have as an individual, but it all starts with families. A lot of times, families are in discord nowadays, so they don't experience. We don't have that peace at home. We can't actually show that peace anywhere else, because one place that we should have it is safe. We don't have it.
You can extend that to the family of humans.
Yeah, because, I mean, overall, we're all brothers and sisters, that's all it starts from your actual family, and that extends to friends, and that extends to extended family members, and it just kind of goes out, and as you go about your everyday life, people start to see that and notice that.
Okay, right on. So here's what I wish. I wish I had time to hear all of your different definitions, but the reason I think that this exercise is important, even though we can't, sort of break down your ideas in a large group, is because I think that too often today people think of peace in very narrow terms. And they think of perhaps the absence of conflict, or what we call negative peace, and they don't think of it in terms of positive peace and the presence of social justice and human rights and prison reform and indigenous peace and environmental justice and mediation and negotiation and cross-cultural understanding and all of these fructifying, the work that each of you undoubtedly does. Now, of course, some of you will think of peace in terms of personal peace and harmony, the absence of conflict and, quiet. And then others of you will think of it in terms of activism and raising your voices and choosing to participate in ways that are loud and perhaps even in some cases, brandishing the tools of aggressive participation. And so your versions of peace may conflict. They're equally legitimate, provided they're nonviolent, in my view. And the idea is that everyone has an entryway. So I guess one of the things I want to start off with is by getting you to think about how co-branding a larger definition of peace and sort of rebranding peace movements is part of the work that you do. Each of you is so storied and so full of knowledge, wisdom, experience that you can impart. But the truth is that a lot of people don't know about the work that you do. And they might, even if they do know about it, not consider it peace building or peacemaking. And so my hope is that we can change that. But unfortunately, when I tell people that I'm, in peace studies, I often get a, that's nice, a sort of a pat on the back, a pet of the cheek, and, folks call me a hippie, or, and so I think that I don't think they understand that the work that you do to make communities better, to really share resources, to advance the causes that you champion, that work is being done. And so we need to share that more. So one of the things that I'm doing in New York the day after tomorrow is I'm working with a group called Peace Studio that's just, journalists and writers and filmmakers and NGO leaders and educators who will help to rebrand peace and tell a greater number of stories. And I hope that you folks really do the same. I'm a little sleepy, I tell you, because I was up all night. Not just because of jet lag, and I don't have the bounce back that I used to in middle age, but because I was texting my friends in North Carolina from Wilmington and New Bern, and I was eager to see how they were doing as they were facing the flooding. And I saw on TV a park in New Bern where I had stood with my great Uncle Jack, and it was now underwater. And I started thinking about water. Last night I was at a reception. And it was sort of like a marriage, are you on the peace side or the water side, of this union? I'm like, oh, I'm on the peace side, but I really dig the folks on the water side, and some of my very best friends are there. But it was, I definitely, it was interesting for me to think about where water has come into play in my own work and life. And my name, interestingly, is a derivation of the Hebrew word for water. And if you say Ammai, I think in the sort of, there's a Japanese, something like a night's rain or some meaning like that. But mostly when I think of water, I think of my mother. So my mother was someone who lived with me in many places, mostly in the Asia, in Southeast Asia and South Asia. And when she was dying, she had me kind of help her to think about what she wanted to do after death, where she wanted to be. She said, initially, I wanted you to put me under a tree, and you can come, you could come with the kids, the family that you haven't started, and you can read to me. She was so sure I was going to have kids. She really wanted grandkids. And then she said, but I changed my mind. She said, because how else am I gonna get to all the people and places that I love so much if you don't put me in the water. And so I did. I put her in the water at Lanai Point on the south shore of Oahu, and I put my grandmother's ashes there as well. And water was for her a conduit to all of the people and places to be sure, and all of the possibility, the work, the collaboration that she wanted in life. She wanted as part of her afterlife, if you will. And in much later, Okinawa, I went to this Peace Memorial. Have you been there? Has anyone been to the Peace Memorial there? There are all of these stones on which are inscribed the names of people who died in the Battle of Okinawa. And it's not just the Okinawa names, it is also the European and the Australian and the Americans, all who died there. And the names, they said, were like waves rolling out past the cliff where Japanese people threw themselves off in suicide rather than being captured by American soldiers, and past the point of suffering and bloodshed to spread peace around the world in the acknowledgement of shared suffering and also, therefore, shared responsibility to build peace. And so I think of my mother in Okinawa when I was preparing my remarks for you today. I really value so much my life in Hawaii, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and that is my water. It connects the world of my past and that of my present, the place where I'm raising my kids. I'm not Hawaiian. This is a mistake a lot of people make. They say, oh, you're Hawaiian. No, I'm not. That is a name that is reserved only for the indigenous community, Kanaka Maoli, but I am someone who feels very connected to the land there. And in the past and hopefully in the future, Hawaiian navigators set sail for the purposes of survival and connection in their va'a, in their canoe, and they navigated using only the stars. And recently, Nainoa Thompson did a 3-year worldwide voyage with his crew to many, many places around the world to think about bringing together communities that were perceived as vulnerable but were really resilient, who had a lot of ideas about how to malama aina, how to take care of our island Earth, how to connect and heal after cultural and historical trauma. And they sailed once again only using the stars, paying careful attention to the behavior of the animals and the waves and the wind, and that kind of mindfulness is an important symbol not only to the Hawaiian people because it represents their ancestry and meaningful history, but also it reminds us all that we can solve problems with the tools that we have, using very little. The entire system already exists. I think about natural systems in Hawaii, like the fish ponds, and systems in Bali, like the terraced rice fields. Have you folks seen the terraced rice fields in Bali? They're on these extreme slopes, making use of gravity, and there isn't a lot of human intervention that is needed. It just reminds me that, you know, peace building does not require a special degree. It's not a job title or reserved for people in particular socioeconomic, spaces or academic spaces, that it is something that each of us can do if we use this broad definition. So my task for you, I guess, moving forward is to help people understand peace work as part of their daily work, to help others to look to the systems that support them in building peace, whether they're ancient or contemporary. The vast networks that this most recent generation have built in terms of media and modern technology are such powerful tools for peace building. I think about how everyone can blog and vlog and create YouTube channels. They can express themselves in ways that are unprecedented, and please encourage them. And just like the paradox of media, in my mind, how it is a divisive force and a connecting force all at once. Water is obviously also a force of terrible destruction, but possibility and opportunity. Whether you're looking at, Flint, Michigan, or Florence and New Orleans and Katrina or Jakarta. When I was a kid, I would get my bathing suit on and I would go out in the middle of the floods and swim in the streets. Now I think about the bacteria that I was swimming in and swallowing. But at the time, I thought it was great fun. But you look at the flooding in Jakarta and you think, oh, there's a lot that needs fixing in the way things are done and cities are planned and people are assisted. But you then look at, I was looking this morning at sort of the UNESCO From Potential Conflict to Cooperation, that UN-wide initiative to promote water security and foster peace, collaboration, and cooperation between all of the different stakeholders. And I was talking last night to, I think his name was Mahmoud, the Palestinian gentleman who is part of the work that is being done with the Dead Sea, Red Sea project with Palestine, Israel, and Jordan. I think about, all of this work as coming quite naturally to peace and using water as a conduit, provided that we have the respect that we need. I was, asked earlier about what are the essential components of the movement that you want to see. And one is definitely that respect. In Aotearoa, they have a river there, the Wanganui River, I think, it's basically been accorded legal or Wangari also called, been accorded legal status like a personhood. And then the Okinawa Memorial that I was just speaking at, it's about making this an inclusive process, casting your net widely, and making sure that people who have not been at the table are at the table, and that it is seen as a grassroots effort and not passive, but vigorously active. Many young people are doing this work, and they naturally come to that conclusion. The Humanity Helping Sudan Project to help refugees, which provides wells for 40,000, or the Sherzikan Atanov's accelerated program to support youth-led projects in Central Asia. So my call is really to just make sure that we wash our eyes. That's what they say in Indonesia, cuci mata, wash your eyes. It's often used in Indonesia as to remind people of the need for a beautiful vista after a long work week. And I see it more as like, what can we do to reclaim a new vision for the potential of this moment, for the potential in ourselves and in others. If you can help the next gen leaders to know their own power, I would be most grateful. Bolster their confidence, give them respect, show them that peace is not reserved for the grown or the elected or the wealthy, but that there is an entry point for everyone. And I really think that part of this is making sure that you do action planning. We call it canoe travel because you envision the island that you want to reach. You think about who you're going to put in your canoe. How are you going to get there? What if the weather is inclement? What if you have to find a new route? And find ways to, to collaborate with young people on envisioning that destination. And I hope that, most of all, that you take a look at all of the collaborative work that is happening now and find courage and mettle in yourselves that is also new. I've redefined courage as well. I used to think of it as jumping out of planes, because I did that a time or two for reasons unknown to me now, like why that was such a bad idea, but now I think of courage as sort of walking, I was saying at lunch today, like walking down a long, dusty road, and you're so tired, and you want to set down your pack, and you want to drink and eat and rest, and you still put one foot in front of the other, and in spite of not having any respite. And I know that a lot of the work that you do feels like solitary work, and it requires enormous courage. And so I hope that you really bring people together at this forum and think about helping others to do the same and amplify their voices and expand their reach. And groups like ICANN and so many others, and the work that's happening on the ground in Colombia can begin to thrive in numerous places. So I thank you so deeply for the opportunity to connect around this topic. Let's wash our eyes and refresh our spirits now with two incredible young people who I know many of you already know and will move you. They're activists, artists, recently named as HuffPost's Top 10 Movers and Shakers. At the age of 6, Shutexkat and Isa both got their start as activists. Shutexkat Martinez started speaking around the world in the years that followed, from the UN summit in Rio to the General Assembly in New York. He's worked locally to get pesticides out of parks, contain coal ash, put moratorium on fracking, in Colorado and elsewhere, and he's currently a plaintiff in a youth-led lawsuit against the federal government for their failure to protect the atmosphere for future generations. The Earth Guardians, started by Isa and Shutexkat's mom, has grown to hundreds of crews in over 50 countries. And his work has been featured on PBS, Showtime, National Geo, Rolling Stone, Upworthy, Guardian, Vogue, Bill Maher, Daily Show, Nickelodeon, Comedy Central, CNN, MSNBC, HBO, Vice. How is that? How do you? Yeah. You're amazing. I don't know how you do that, but you got to give props. He's really working hard. Martinez has received awards, including the Peace First Prize. Peace First is the organization that works with under 25-year-olds, and I'm doing the Peace First Summit in New York on Sunday, and they give micro grants, but also help wrap around the young people, mentors and philanthropists, and many others. And he's on their board. He's also received the United States Community Service Award from President Obama, and was the youngest of 24 national change makers chosen to serve on the President's Youth Council. Isa Roski Marson has been working in the fields of activism for over 2 decades. She's been an Earth Guardian since 6. She co-founded Youth Leaders in Action, a project that gave young people the opportunity to feel empowered to create positive change, first by educating themselves about the issues, and then by acting to make a difference. She achieved the E Achievement Award from E-Town Radio, Peacemaker of the Year Award from the Rocky Mountain Peace and Justice Center. And because she loves music and dance, that is being woven into her work as an activist. And together, brother and sister are sharing their music and messages at festivals across the country. Please welcome them and then work with them and help them and other young people like them in the future. Mahalo nui for all you do. Aloha.
This is good. How you guys feeling? All right. Grateful to be here. It's my beautiful sister, Isa. And my name is Shutexkat Martinez. And we got some music to share with you, and then we'll tell a little bit of our story. So here we go. Y'all are all invited to stand up if you'd like. How are y'all, please? Yeah.
Love is real, love is fast, love is confusing. Time is two, time is real, time is fast, time is bending. Love is real, love will last, love is unending. Hearts break too, time
blind. Struggled a lot so that I could find my purpose in life, and I found it in time, found it in the timing, found it in the patterns of the words I've been writing. Let the rhythm guide me, take my time, I can never waste it. You would never find me making music that is basic. Dreams I've been chasing, looking for my place in the world of concrete, flowers in the pavement. So much hope, but your heart seems vacant. Love is a cure, there is no replacement. You're my source of inspiration, writing love letters to the girl I've been chasing. Soul searching, live in the moment, go with the flow, and my river keeps floating. Floating, scribbled on my page, praying my light won't die when the sun fades. Blue ink, written in my veins, written for the love of the music I've made. Blue ink, scribbled on my page, praying my light won't die when the sun fades. Blue ink, written in my name, written for this love of the music I've made. Yeah. Old soul, still going up. Thank you to the fam that is still showing love. Like high school, still showing up. I miss the lakes that we don't go enough, and it don't feel like home, and I'm always on the road, canceling my trips, and I blame it on the snowman. I miss summer, it was just me and you, left for no time after traveling in school. And despite all the blessings, life's hard. People's expectations got me painting over scars. You're so inspiring, you're gonna change the world, and I'm showing all your videos to my little girl, but I'm losing myself to my cause. I am the hero, I have many flaws. Sacrifices I've given for this life I've been living, fighting for the children, I'm fighting the odds. And this shit's been tough, sacrificed a lot and it's still not enough. So when the world gets heavy and the days get long, I find myself getting lost in these songs, lost in your smile, lost in my thoughts. There's magic in my music, all I've got, except for you. Verses written in my book, always written in blue ink, scribbled on my page, praying my light won't die when the sun fades. Blue ink, written in my veins, written for the love of the music I've made. Blue ink, scribbled on my page, praying my light won't die when the sun fades. Blue ink, written in my name, for the music I've made. Life's been everything but easy, and I can see my goals so clearly. The obstacles are all in my head, keeping all these secrets and the words never read. Never understood me while I was depressed. I should be grateful, it doesn't make sense. With this love in my life, I should feel blessed. Happiness ain't a goal, it's only a test. Learning every day, making my mistakes. You gotta let go if you wanna find your way. I giving thanks for the humble beginnings. We still have a long way to go. Throw me to the ocean just to teach me how to swim. Got nothing to lose if you ever wanna win. Never let me in, never let me go. I just want a chance, I just wanna know who am I to you, who will I become? Escape the person that I'm running from. Yeah, well I escape the person that I'm running from. Whoa, blue ink, scribbled on my page, praying my light won't die when the sun fades. Blue ink, written in my veins, written for the love of the music I've made. Blue ink, scribbled on my page, praying my light won't die when the sun fades. Blue ink, written in my name, for this music I've made. Thank you. Wow. Shouts out the translators from one time. I'm very thoroughly impressed. That is the story of how music helped me find my way when I was going through really difficult times in my life, being in the limelight as an activist and on the ground and with the communities, and just being so overwhelmed by that energy as a young man, like trying to figure out and find my way. And writing this music helped set me free. So we got another song for you guys, and I'm gonna tell a little bit more of my story. And this next song is definitely for the youth. This song is a reflection on the state of our youth currently, and yeah, it's very powerful. So even if hip hop's not your thing, I encourage you to listen to the message, because I think it's one that I really wrote for young people out there that are finding their way. Many of my generation and friends of mine that have lost their lives to addiction and suicide, and lots of these really heavy issues that are very close to my heart. So to really understand that music can be a conduit to help find healing and to help find peace within ourselves. So here we go. And make some noise one time for my beautiful sister Issa real quick. Yeah. This song is called Young. I'm young and I'm positive. Two things that I've never not been, but growing up in a world so cold, it made it hard for a kid to not lose hope. And I just just a voice for a lost generation. The ignorance of people taught me to be patient. So I'll be patient and stay humble. Defeat the hatred and watch the walls crumble. Don't let the pain of the world steal your smile. Don't let the concrete take what was once wild. I run wild, no borders, no fences. Tobacco in the wind in all four directions. 17 years to obsidian eyes. Sail across the ocean, the meridian lines to where oblivion lies. Shit, I'm ahead of my time, I'm just a young fool chasing the sunrise, yeah.
Is it just me, or is it this city? Lights have been swallowing me. Who would believe beautifulness, beautifulness, and break free? I guess we'll see.
Damn, what have I become? There's a man in the mirror I've been trying to run from. Sober, I don't wanna wait till I get older. Addiction, amphetamines are feeding me an iPhone screen of anxiety. Little boy inside of me is scared, yeah, but he's a survivor. Medicated and hated himself for it. Left home to forage and face God in the forest. Bypass, sorting through the trauma. The loss of the feminine's a lot for mama. I'm guilty of abusing power. Retrieve my soul, I've been a coward. Pornography distorted my perception of women. I'm giving in to him again and again. It's a fucking sickness. But forgive him, he was just a child. Receive him as he reconciles.
Is it just me, or is it this city? Lights have been swallowing me. Who would believe beautifulness, beautifulness, and break free? I guess we'll see.
And most youth chase nothing, no sense of direction. Pressure to fit into these boxes, be perfect. In the world of imperfection, we don't celebrate laughter, a greater purpose, or pursuing your passion. And I'm trapped in my mind, and the only escape is when I'm on stage rapping, where your test scores seem to mean more than feeling alive and finding out what you breathe for. And I feel something missing. My generation should dream more. Broken wings, broken hearts, broken world will fall apart. All that I've done is not enough. There's too damn much I can't control, and I can't let go. I feel the weight of the world on my shoulders. I feel the guilt of never getting sober. I feel for you, never felt love. I feel the pressure of trying to grow up. I feel that blade, I feel the scars. I feel the fear of not knowing who we are. The hate, the love, the tears that we shed for those that we lost, buried with their regrets. And this is deep in the words, deeper than the depression of the kids in the burbs. The pain of being alive, man, that shit still hurts. Prescribed by a doctor, but these pills don't work. Over-medicate the youth from east to west coast. Scars on your wrist, written suicide notes. Is it your life to live, not your life to take? I'm so sick and tired of these mistakes we make, yeah.
Is it just me, or is it this city? Lights have been swallowing me. Who would believe beautifulness, beautifulness, and break
Can I just get one more huge round of applause for my sister real quick? Thank y'all for listening so intently. Those songs were written and made with a lot of love, so appreciate y'all receiving that little gift of ours. How y'all feeling? How's the day? All right, that was all right. You guys must be a little tired. All right, let's try this one more time. Let's get the energy up. How's everybody feeling out there? Beautiful, beautiful. Well, shouts out to all the organizers, shouts out to all the peacemakers and the beautiful warriors that have gathered today, the people in the audience, the people on these stages, the people that help run it back there. They're, doing the thing of really making it so we can all be comfortable and feel at home in this place. My name is Shutesca Martinez. I'm 18 years old. I'm from Boulder, Colorado. My people and my ancestry is in Mexico, Tenochtitlan, in Santa Cruz, Calpisca, in Mexico, where my father's people are from. So I want to acknowledge that ancestry and that lineage as well, my indigenous roots. And also acknowledge the indigenous peoples of this land that we're on currently right now, and really ask to be able to walk here in a good way this entire conference, so we make sure that we're walking in respect and understanding that this is the land of traditional peoples from very, very long ago. Yeah. My father, when I was a little boy, my father spent a lot of time teaching us about our culture, about our tradition, our languages, our songs, our dances of the Mexica people. For us, after colonization, after our ancestors and our people were colonized, it was a lot of the knowledge and the teachings and the ceremony was very lost, and it was only passed on in the homes. The language was not written; it was orally passed on just from generation to generation. And my great grandmother on my grandfather's side, she never taught Nahuatl, the language, to my grandfather because of the shame and the oppression towards indigenous peoples and peoples that spoke the language. And so we were very cut off from our ancestry until my father was like 12. And then there was a huge cultural renaissance that happened in Mexico, where indigenous people that had kept these homes, these sacred prayers and this sacred language alive, returned to the streets, returned to their ceremonial spaces, and began to practice the ceremony again, practice the language again. And when I was growing up, this was a huge part of who I was. I was just a little boy. I didn't really go to school until I was like 10 or 11. And I spent all my time in nature and in ceremony. And my father would remind me of one of the great poets of our ancestors. His name was Nezahualcóyotl. And one of his poems, one of the most lasting things that I've heard that he said was, Tinexcayuta tiu xochime, tinexcayuta tiu cuicame. Por lo menos dejamos flores, por lo menos dejamos cantos. At the least we have left flowers, at the least we have left songs. And this was kind of a reflection on the end of our people's empire. When Spain was colonizing and taking over everything, that one of our last leaders told the people that our empire and our kingdoms and our temples may fall and come to an end, but at least we have left flowers, at the least we have left songs, meaning that the beauty of our culture, the richness in our culture, isn't in our material wealth. It isn't in the temples that we've built. It isn't in the gold and the turquoise that we have mined. It isn't in the jewelry or the headdresses or the crowns of our people. It is in the culture. It is in this beauty of the legacy that we will pass on and keep it alive for future generations. And so my father began to teach me about our legacy at a very young age. And he taught me that as indigenous peoples, acknowledging and recognizing and learning of what our ancestors suffered through, from slavery, oppression and genocide and discrimination, they fought and sacrificed and suffered so that we could have this land that we walk upon, so we could drink clean water, so that we could have these ways of life, these languages, these prayers, these poems. And now it's our turn. And as a little boy, my father taught us that now it's our turn to carry on this legacy and be the ones that are passing it on for the future generations. That every step of the way in our lives, we walk in honor of those that came before us and in honor of those that will follow. So when we talk about this work of peacemaking, when we talk about the work of justice, of environmental, social justice, of equality, we're really talking about legacy. We're really talking about the world we will leave on and pass on to the next generation. Not just from this lens of being an activist or specifically being in a field that makes you, the kind of person that should handle these kinds of issues, because all of us have a role to play, regardless of who we are or where we work or the profession or the classes that we're taking at school or the way we choose to study or learn. This is about so much more than that. And so I was this little boy, like 4, 5, 6 years old, learning all these teachings. And at the time, I thought everybody else was like that too. I was like, everybody's got, native dads dropping them mad wisdom like this. And when I was 6, I saw the Leonardo DiCaprio documentary called The 11th Hour. And it showed the destruction of our planet. It showed footage and video footage of hurricanes and storms, tropical storms that were washing away cities, cars floating down the rivers, floods, monsoons, wildfires, the extinction of wild animals. And I was really struck with a lot of anger and pain. And I was like, Ma, people live their lives every single day without thinking about this. We knowingly are aware of the fact that climate change is destroying our planet, that species are going extinct every single day, that they're leveling our natural resources and leveling our forests and exploiting this planet, and people say nothing. Many of us are silent every single day. When we see people disproportionately affected by this issue, I saw my people, I saw brown people and black people that were disproportionately affected by our global climate crisis, and I said, who's helping them? Who's reaching out to them? And it was really difficult for me to understand that that's how the world was. And so I got up onto a stage when I was 6 years old, and I stood in front of a whole audience full of adults, and I said, you need to educate your children better. You need to teach your kids how to love the earth and how to see our connection to the planet. And it was a little bit of a naive, demand from an audience full of parents, myself knowing nothing about parenting. But all I knew is that we had to do a better job of teaching young people to fight for what we love and to love the planet. So we would fight to protect the planet. And it was this connection that my father taught me that woke that within me. And from then on, every step of my life had been with this understanding that everything I'm doing is in honor of my ancestors and in honor of future generations. And that meant that the work that I had to do on this planet was absolutely critical. The responsibility that each and every one of us individually had was absolutely critical in shaping the legacy that we will pass on to the next generation. When I began to get involved, I was 6, 7, 8 years old, campaigning, visiting different protests, and looking at different political issues in my community, environmental issues, looking at the use of chemical pesticides and fertilizers and GMOs and natural gas extraction. And I would go to these events, and it was myself, this one little long-haired brown kid with a really long name no one could pronounce, and a bunch of old white people. And I was like, ¿Dónde está mi gente? Like, where are my people at? I was like, why am I the only person that looks like me in this sea of people with great intentions that want to make a change? And I started to look at the way in which we were communicating, telling these stories, and talking about change, talking about peace and justice, talking about the environment, and it wasn't an inclusive space. And so I started to kind of branch off and do my own thing with the youth. And what I saw is that if we look back through history, many of the greatest movements of our time have had a component where the power was brought through by young people's engagement, investment, and involvement. And what I saw when I began to go to high schools, when I began to go to high school, attend high school myself, travel the world and meet young people all over the place, is there's a lot of dysfunction within our youth. Many young people don't feel heard. The systems that we have currently are constructed so that young people don't have as much power or don't have a say, and adults don't listen, where the odds are stacked against us just because we are young and have spent less years on this planet than our older counterparts. And I was like, this needs to change, because the world needs to change. And I saw a lot of the tactics that our elders in this movement had been doing for many, many years, and I saw the urgency of everything happening around us, of the injustice and the inequality and the crisis, the catastrophe that we faced, and saw that a lot needs to take place to help heal the planet and bring us all together. And so I began to target the youth, and I worked with the organization my mother started before I was born, called Earth Guardians. And we started in my community, where I was completely overwhelmed by the global crisis of climate change. And we began to localize the solutions bit by bit, giving the power back into the hands of these young people, saying, like, your voice matters, your presence matters. We want you to be a part of the decision-making process. We want you to be a part of fighting for your community. We want to listen to what you have to say and what you are passionate about, and use that as our tools and our weapons to create change within this world. And we started doing it, and we started taking over city council meetings and county commissioner meetings. We started filling the guest list, or the speakers list, for all the young people that were coming out and sharing public comment. We started flooding the press conferences and coming to all the events. And it was me and my squad of like all these kids from ages like 7. My little bro was like 6 and 7 at this time, so like 11 and 12. And we would pull up to these events, and they would have to drag out like little boxes for us to stand on so we could reach the podium. And we shook things up, and adults listened to us, and these politicians listened to us. And all of a sudden, there was this energy worldwide that young people heard and they felt. Through social media, they saw the work that we were doing. And all of a sudden, we were getting people were writing us from Bhutan, from the Philippines, from across the United States, from Togo, Africa, from India, and they were saying, how do we get involved? How do we do this? How do we become Earth Guardians? And it was this massive wave of energy that we began to generate. And so locally, what we began to do is distribute our energy to, rather than just continue the local project, to recognize this is so much bigger than that. That what the world needs and what young people need is a platform to build upon, a platform to which any young person in the community can download it on the internet or can find a way to plug into these movements and into the world. And that starts with a transition in how we communicate and tell these stories around this movement. And I think one of the biggest transitions that needs to be made is how we view the crises that we face and how we view our involvement and our responsibility. And I think what it all circles back to is love. I think it's something that is seldom spoken of in these different spaces, is that when we fight for peace and equality, when we fight for justice, when we fight for the environment, when we fight for rising tides and for protecting communities in the South Pacific that are experiencing the worst of climate change, we fight for what we love. And there are many things that humanity and people share, from our family to the magic of our moments to travel to tradition, all these different things that make life beautiful, that make life brilliant, our diversity, our community. And in reality, when I ask myself too, what it is that like, why am I up here? Why do I have dedicated my life to this? It's to fight to protect what we love. And I think a huge part of it is helping people fall back in love with these really important things, like clean water, like our earth. And to recognize that this isn't a movement about protest and resistance and activism. This is a space where we all have a responsibility and a role to play. And what I saw is when I started getting involved with hip hop and my music and really entering that community, people began to get it. They're like, oh, okay, so you're a hip hop artist and you're also talking about these messages through your music. You're utilizing these different avenues to have these critical conversations to reach people in a different space. Because things are too hectic in the world right now to just be reaching out to the same activists and environmentalists that have been showing up to all the protests. It's time to expand. We need innovators and entrepreneurs and CEOs. We need creators and poets and artists and doctors and healers. You know, that this movement is so much bigger than us. And every time I travel, I see young people that have this spark within themselves, and that opportunity is given for them to have that lit, and for them to experience like being inspired by something and having like a platform to act upon it. It's the most beautiful thing in the world. And what I've seen worldwide is everywhere I go, yes, young people are disenfranchised, disempowered. Young people are facing a lot of challenges, but at the same time, everywhere that I go, I see that the hope for our future is in the hands of the youth, in the hearts of the youth, that I see every great crisis that we face in the world today, and I know that the solutions lie within the minds and the hearts of our generation that will lead the way. And don't get me wrong, this has to be an intergenerational movement, and just because there are young people like me standing up here and doing it, doesn't mean you can say, oh, good job, thank you for what you're doing. And then, like, you know, we need everybody to play their role, everybody to play their part, and I believe young people will lead the way. And we've seen it with the movements of Black Lives Matter, LGBTQ, Parkland, the climate justice movement, the student divestment movement, Standing Rock that happened in North Dakota, excuse me. And I think that there's incredible significance when we look at the power we have, when we distribute it back to the youth. So for the students in this room, like, this is talking directly to you. When we allow ourselves to take that power back into our hands, and it's not about stepping into a box of what it looks like to create change. It's about making our own way. About asking ourselves, what is our community, our talent, our connection? How do we connect and engage with the world that inspires us the most? And how do we use that as a vehicle to create impact and create change? And we all have a different way, but we all have a significant responsibility to leave behind a beautiful legacy for every generation to follow. A more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthy world that we can pass on to our children and be proud of passing on. So 18-year-old kids don't have to stand on our stage and give this speech to anybody in the future. So people don't have to sacrifice their lives or their childhood, their careers to fight for change. I believe that it is within our lifetime that we can turn the tides of the movements and of the world. And I think it's gonna take everybody. And it's gonna take us being humble and recognizing that we have to sometimes step out of the way for the youth to step forward, to take that position of leadership. We have to be uncomfortable, as sometimes we have to have difficult conversations, and we have to ask ourselves, what can we really give in these times to ensure that our children will experience the beauty and the wonder and the amazement of this world to its fullest? Really recognize that the people that are holding the power aren't those in office, but they're the people that are on the grounds, that are in the streets, that are running the hospitals, that are at every other level of society as well. We have an incredible amount of power now. It's time to take it back. Really appreciate y'all listening. And we have one more song if you guys are interested in hearing another song. All good? Close it out with a little bit of music. Yo, make some noise for my sister real quick. One more time. So for real, like, whatever you feel from this weekend, from this event, from this conference, of inspiration, these seeds of hope, passion, like, take that and plant those seeds somewhere else. Like, bring that into action. Because it really is up to us. If you want to get more engaged with the work we're doing with Earth Guardians or the lawsuit against the federal government, we're suing the Trump administration, go to earthguardians.org. Hit us up on social media. We're going to be playing a show in Minneapolis at the Varsity Theater, October 24th. So if you're interested in coming hearing more music, come hit us up at our next show nearby. And this is how we do the movement, for real. Let's get it. And I think one thing that's really beautiful, too, is like, this is our resistance. This art, this music is our resistance. This is the way we fight for change, you know? So this is our last song. I want to invite everybody to stand up. Everybody stand up. You don't got to dance if you don't want to. But if you want to, you can. Hey. Hey. This song is called One Day. It's our story. Yeah. I'ma make it one day. Take your damn time till you find your own way. Like, been a minute, the sky is the limit. The industry game, and you know that I'ma win it. Running in the rain, hands in the ground. Renegade, a radical, lost and I'm found. I wanna make waves, beginning in this storm. Try to find myself amongst the mass that I born. Magic in the moment, we mobilize our masters. The music that I make a name, mainstream, it's massive. Grasses and greener on the other side. Life is a journey, just along for the ride. Man, I'm taking it all. Ready for the summer when the snow won't fall. Like, one day, ready for change. Nothing but 11 letters written in my name. Carved in the stone, I'ma give them hell. Written into history, the stories that I tell.
One day don't justify, we must live this life. Forever is a long word. One day don't translate, we must meditate. This moment is all we got. Growing up on these streets, making music for free. You can reach for the sky, mama told me. Growing up on these streets, making music for free. Gotta live for your dreams, mama showed me.
From the ground up, so grassroots, fam in the street, dedicated to you, to the homies making beats in your basement and chasing the litter air condition, trying to build the foundation. This goes out to you, to the kids running wild without these shoes, yeah. I refuse to follow the rules, following the leader, man, I'm following the truth. Young rebel, writing my own rhythm, rise from the rubble of the cities that we live in. Who am I kidding? The times that we living in, give me legitimate reason to remain vigilant. Life's a game, I play it like an instrument. Let me see your hands in the sky if you're feeling it. Listen to my voice, the words I speak. I'm in the streets for the change I seek. Practice what I preach, it's only the beginning. I'll make it one day, I'ma keep the world spinning.
One day don't justify, we must live this life. Forever is a long way. One day don't translate, we must meditate. This moment is all we got. Growing up on these streets, making music for free. You can reach for the sky, mama told me. Growing up on these streets, making music for free. Gotta live for your dreams, mama showed me. Growing up on these streets, making music for free. You can reach for the sky, mama told me. Growing up on these streets, making music for free. Gotta live for your dreams.
Now, can I see your hands up in the sky clapping like this? I want to see everybody's hands up. Hey. X for the crossroads that I face. I but within the beginning of our change, written for you, my people, the reason that I rap. Represent your voice and every single track. A's how you're learning, T for all the teachers, teaching me to tell a story, get above the bleachers. Easy, my life has never been suffering. Motivation stroke on my pen like CA, the California waves. My Latino family from Diego to the Bay. Viva la raza, la revolución, la pelea de la gente es lo que me inspiró. That's T from Mexico, the Nochiclan, jungla de obsidiana, regresará. L for the miracle of life I've been given. Never found a kid this young and so driven like. One day.
Thank you.
Another round of applause for my beautiful sister Issa. And remember, yo, the keys to creating change and peace and justice in this world are in the hands of each and every one of us. So thank you for jamming with us. Thank you for listening to us. Catch us in concert next month, and we'll be around the world. So have a beautiful day, y'all.
All right, give it up for Juteskat and Issa. Woo! All right, well, that wraps up our closing plenary today. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Thanks for all of our panelists and speakers, and for not just in this session, but in all the sessions we had earlier today. We're going to be heading out this evening for those that have tickets to the Peace Meal over in the quad, just on the other side of Murphy Park here. If you're not going to that, there, as I mentioned earlier, plenty of other restaurants around town if you want to go grab a bite to eat. But then after the meal at around 8 o'clock this evening, there's going to be a wonderful art festival featuring the work of Ali Momeni and Jenny Schmid. Really encourage you to come check that out. It's called Sinking. It's all about what we put into the water, and it's this interactive, huge-scale graphics projections on the buildings around campus, so it's going to be really cool. And desserts, which is open to anybody, so if you want to come back for some good art and dessert, please join us around dusk. And then tomorrow morning, we'll be regathering in this space at 9:30, the opening plenary with Beatrice Finn, honoring the work of ICANN and the amazing accomplishments in regard to the passage of the Treaty for the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. A daunting task if there ever was one, but if I think any organization is up to that challenge, it is ICANN and their executive director, Beatrice Finn, who will be joined with some other members of the nuclear ban movement. So enjoy your evening. Thanks again for being here. We'll meet again at 9:30 for another very rich day of programming, discussion, and action. So thanks very much.